Blue Jackets are 0-2 against the Philadelphia Flyers so far this season. They need to change that. How? We're going to talk about that on today's Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place a $5 bet, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets whether you win or lose. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. Let's talk about tonight's game because the Blue Jackets are on the precipice of winning 5 games in a row for the first time, I think, since 2020. So it's been a minute. They're playing some really good hockey at the minute. Unfortunately, they are 0-2 against the Flyers so far this season. One game, abject disaster. The other game, still not great. So Blue Jackets really need to figure out how to pick up from those 2 games and how to extend this win streak, because the playoff race is tight and it's going to get tighter. Big 4-point game tonight, which every day is, we'll know this, but if you're new here, basically a 4-point game is if you're playing someone in your own division, because if you win, you get both the 2 points that you won and also the 2 points that your opponent would have won. So basically, instead of, if you both start at 0, then if you win, you get 2, the other team gets -2. And it swaps like that. So it comes from being a tie to a 4-point difference between the two of you. So that's not the exact way the math works, but it's close enough. So I always call division games 4-point games, especially when, in the case of tonight's game, the Flyers, there are 4 teams between the Blue Jackets and the Flyers, but the Blue Jackets only have 3 points on the Philadelphia Flyers. They do have a game in hand. The Flyers have played 44. The Blue Jackets have only played 43. But if the Flyers win tonight, that'll bump them up to 45 points. The Blue Jackets stuck on 46, maybe 47 if they get an overtime point. But it's still kind of too close for comfort, you know? You've got Ottawa, Detroit, Montreal, Pittsburgh right on the heels of the Blue Jackets. You know, you need to do something to keep gaining ground in this race, because really no one's out of it yet. Arguably the Sabres, but even then they're only 9 points behind the Blue Jackets. So, that's a hot streak away from being in the mix, So Blue Jackets need to win tonight. They need to win most nights, honestly, but winning tonight is especially important because of where the Flyers are in the standings as well, and it's going to be a similar story when the Blue Jackets don't face the Senators until middle of March, but they've got more games against the Red Wings. They're done against the Canadiens, which helps. They've got one more game against the Penguins, I believe. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They've got 2 more games against the Flyers as well. So tonight, and then they don't play them again until April 15th. That could be a real interesting game, depending on what the standings look like then. So there's a lot at stake here for this game. No matter what happens, the Blue Jackets will finish ahead of the Flyers in the standings, tonight. But looking kind of around the league, just before I get into what's going on there, before I get into the specific game, just some other kind of scoreboard things to keep an eye on. The Bruins, who are currently in the first wild card spot, 1 point ahead of the Blue Jackets, are playing Tampa Bay. The Red Wings are playing San Jose. Pittsburgh is playing the Kraken. Ottawa is playing the Islanders. and Montreal is playing Utah. So basically every team in the mix, as it were, is playing tonight. So the Blue Jackets, they need a win. They need a win. And how can they do this? Well, let's talk about a couple of things that this team can do, or that this team can continue to do. Let's say, because one thing that immediately stands out is the Blue Jackets are ninth in the league in power play percentage right now, which still feels like fake a little bit. Like that feels like it's wrong. And I don't know, something happened here, you know. The Flyers are only 20th in the league on the penalty kill. So if the Blue Jackets can draw some penalties, that'll help a lot. Something else that will help is the fact that the Flyers power play is awful. The Blue Jackets penalty kill is similarly not great, but I'm not as worried about doing the crime that the Blue Jackets tend to do, because Philadelphia's power play is kind of anemic at the minute. Blue Jackets are scoring more goals than the Flyers. They're also allowing more goals than the Flyers. I want to talk about goaltending in a minute here, because we don't know what's going to happen for the Blue Jackets. The Flyers played last night, which is always a positive for a rested team. And the Blue Jackets are also at home, so that should help as well. You know, I've talked at length about the Blue Jackets' struggles at home. The Blue Jackets' struggles on the road versus their excellent home record. Now, the Flyers have already beaten the Blue Jackets in Nationwide this season, and they've beaten them at Wells Fargo as well in Philadelphia. So I'm not like going to sit here and be like, they're at home, they're definitely going to win, but I do think it will help. So lots of key things here for the Blue Jackets to kind of focus on. Again, they're playing some really good hockey at the minute. Some of it is kind of like an adventure, shall we say? You know, there's been some games that are, yeah, adventure seems like the best word for them. I'm thinking specifically of the game that kicked off this 4-game winning streak, the St. Louis Blues, where they were up like 4-1 or 5-1, and then the final score was 6-4. Got real dicey there, got real exciting for a minute. But then like they had that massive comeback win over the Penguins. They were 3-1 down at the beginning of the third period, and I said, hey, what if or at the halfway through the third period, even like there was 8 minutes left when they started the comeback. And I was like, man, that's probably game. Maybe I'll go to bed. I didn't. I'm glad I didn't. But like, hey, they sure showed me. Excellent game against the Seattle Kraken. Excellent game against the St. Louis Blues. So like, they're playing some really good hockey at the minute. The goaltending, for the most part, has been pretty decent. Again, we're going to talk about Blue Jackets goaltending specifically in a second here. But regardless of which goaltender starts, I do think that the Blue Jackets probably have the edge in goaltending. And I know that Tarasov has really, really struggled if they do start Tarasov. But the Flyers, like I said, they played last night, and they played Samuel Ersson last night against the Panthers, which is fair. I also would start my number one goalie against the Panthers over the Blue Jackets. Alexei Kolosov, their backup right now, has been quite poor for this team. He's got better stats than Tarasov right now, but he's lost his last three starts, excuse me. He played well December 31st in relief against San Jose, finished the game, made 7 of 7 saves. But apart from that, 4 goals on 26, 5 goals on 20, 6 goals on 26. Like, played very well in a win against Detroit, but he's only got 1 win in his last 6 games. So, and only 1 game above a 900 save percentage as well, which is kind of the benchmark that I like to use for a decent game from a goalie. So that's in the Blue Jackets' favor as well. A lot of pressure on Danil Tarasov. Let's take a quick break, actually, and then we'll talk about what I would do with the goaltending if I was the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets in tonight's game. First, I've got to tell you all about FanDuel. because big upsets, game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $200 in bonus bets whether you win or lose. Just open the app, put $5 on literally anything you want. Put $5 on, I don't know, the Lions winning the Super Bowl, for example. And whether that comes true or not, you're going to get $200 that you can spend on whatever you want. The FanDuel app gives you everything that you need for live bets, for same-game parlays, and so much more. To visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk goaltending for the Blue Jackets, because we know what's going to happen with the Flyers. Although I don't know, do we know what's going to happen with the Flyers? Kolosov has been pretty bad recently. Do they do the thing where they start their better goalie in back-to-back nights and hope that he's not like too tired from the night before? I don't know what I know the Flyers won at the last minute. But okay, the Essen only actually faced 23 shots from the Panthers, so like it wasn't a super. It wasn't like one of those, oh man, he faced 50 shots, he's exhausted. So like it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could put Essen back in. My guess is that they start Kolosov, and just kind of go with it. Do the Blue Jackets start Elvis Merzlikins or do they start Danil Tarasov? Now, Danil Tarasov just came back from his conditioning stint in Cleveland, was great for one of the games and not great for the other game. Averaged out into being fine. I think he had a 906 over the two games combined, or a 908 maybe, something along those lines. Do you start him in this game to kind of see what you've got? You know, again, the problem with Tarasov has been rust. You know, and if you play him back-to-back games, you play him Friday, Saturday. Blue Jackets, this is their first game since calling him back up, so he hasn't played in a couple of days. Do you take advantage of the fact that he might be in some kind of a rhythm now? Play him tonight, see what happens, or do you play Elvis tonight because this is a big divisional game? Elvis, I know, has frustrated a lot of people this season, myself included. He is the better goalie of the two right now. Do you start him tonight for this divisional game and then start Tarasov against the Sharks on Thursday, which frankly is a game that matters much less than this game against the Flyers, you know? And I know a lot of people will say that kind of stuff doesn't factor into it. You play your best goalie, but it kind of does. So I personally, I think, would go for option 2. I think I would play Merzlikins against the better team, against the divisional team in Philadelphia. Give Tarasov a quote-unquote easy game against the Sharks, who are improved from last season, but not by much. They did win the last time these two teams faced off. The Blue Jackets went 0-3 in their California swing. They're actually 0-4 against Californian teams this season right now because they got swept by the Ducks, which is fine. If you take Vanacek with like a 49 save performance, Blue Jackets lose in overtime the last time the Sharks faced each other. So like I'm not sitting here saying that the Sharks game is going to be an automatic win regardless of who you put in goal, but I do think it's going to be an easier game than the Flyers. So we'll see what happens. Again, I could see arguments for both. I could see arguments for taking advantage of Tarasov having played more recently than Elvis. Jet Greaves started the game on Saturday against the Blues. Elvis would have played, I think, the Thursday game going back. So Elvis last played on Thursday. Tarasov played Friday and Saturday. Jet played Saturday. So we'll see what happens. But I know what I would do. But you know, again, I could see an argument for the other side of this. But I think regardless of what happens this week, whichever one of these games Tarasov starts, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I'll just kind of reiterate it. Like, I think this is Tarasov's kind of last chance for right now. You know, he has been not good enough this season. I think partially for things outside of his control and partially for things in his control. You know, it's hard when you're playing once every 3 weeks and then you give up, you know, just 4 or 5 goals on 30 shots because you're rusty. And then the response to that is to sit you for another 3 weeks and then be shocked when like you're still rusty, you know? I get that, but also like again, when he was playing like semi-regularly, like at the beginning of the season, he was getting wins, but he also wasn't like performing as well as the team needed him to. So it's kind of a tough one, but I think if he plays poorly in his next start, which again could be as early as tonight, if he plays poorly then, it feels a little bit like it might be game over for Tarasov. I could see them putting him on waivers. We saw it happen with the Canadians a couple of weeks ago. They had Caden Primo, who was about as rough as Tarasov in terms of performance this year. They stuck him on waivers. They took the risk. No one claimed him, and he's gone back down to the Laval Rocket to again try and find his game. So like, I don't think anyone like I'm trying to think of teams that need goaltending right now, and I don't think anyone is desperate enough to try and pick up Tarasov right now. If his stats were even just a little bit better, I could see it. But I think he's been bad enough this season and hasn't played enough this season that I don't think any team is going to take a risk on him. GMs are cowards and don't like picking players up off of waivers anyway. So like I think the risk is pretty low. And if they can, get him down to Cleveland and again, get him playing regularly, and also this will have the benefit of getting Jets some more NHL time, which I think he has deserved at this point. I will say that Caden Primo, since going down to Laval, has played 2 games for the Rocket. Actually, I think he was playing in the same weekend games that Tarasov played in, but Caden Primo is 2-0 on the season, has 1 shutout, and has allowed 1 goal on 44 shots for a .977 save percentage. So he's playing very well in a small sample size down in Laval. And if they can, get Tarasov reliable playing time down there, again, let him refine his game. And if you can get Tarasov going again, like that's going to be great because again, I said something else I talked about yesterday, but it's still relevant, so we're going to talk about it again. Elvis is not the most durable goalie in the world. You need a backup that can probably reliably play 30 to 40 games a season. And right now, they're doing anything to avoid having Tarasov play games. So you need to either fix that by getting a different backup, or you need to fix the backup that you have right now. So like if they can get Tarasov firing on all cylinders again, like that's in their best interest. So I think honestly that's what I would do. Of course, if he plays well in the start that he gets this week, then that kind of kicks the can down the road. If he plays well, then he probably gets another start next week. The Blue Jackets have a back-to-back coming up, I think, in a week or so. So we'll monitor that. We'll see what happens there. But I would play Elvis tonight, and then we'll have the Tarasov conversation again on Thursday when the Sharks are in town. Going to take another quick break, then we'll talk a little bit more about tonight's game, players to watch for the Flyers, players to watch for the Blue Jackets, and we'll make some predictions. So that's all coming up in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Rocket Money because I don't know about you, but like over the past couple of years, I have been really great at getting free trials for things, watching like 3 episodes of something on a streaming service, forgetting it exists for 6 months, and then realizing that I've been paying like $7, $8, $10 a month for something that I'm not using. The good news is I have Rocket Money now, and I am paying so much less money for things that I don't use, which is great. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together in one place, whether that's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the financial goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Like I said, I really loved the subscription tracker. I used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, services that I didn't know that I was still using, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, which means there's no more stressing about budgeting every month, which is my least favorite thing about money. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about who needs to have a big game for the Blue Jackets and who to watch out for on the Philadelphia Flyers. It's kind of our old friend, Travis Konechny, is on a little bit of a hot streak for the Flyers right now. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games, 5 assists, 2 goals. Morgan Frost has 3 goals in his last 5 games. In terms of points leaders, Konechny leading the way with 50 points in 44 games, 20 goals, 30 assists. Konechny might be one of the more underrated players in the league, honestly. I like his game a ton. He's really, really annoying, and also pretty good. So I understand why people don't like him. I think he's a really underrated player. He's always a pain in the butt to play against, which is, is not nothing in today's league. In terms of other players to keep an eye on, Matvei Michkov is, I believe, leading the rookie scoring lead at the minute. He's got 31 points in 42 games, which is pretty darn good. Owen Tippett has 12 goals in 44 games. Tyson Foster also has 12 goals. And then leading the way on defense is Travis Sanheim with 23 points in 44 games. They're not getting a ton of offense from the defense, which is not relatable, honestly. The Blue Jackets are getting a ton of offense from their defense right now, but Travis Konechny leading the way. He would be leading this team in points. He would be leading the Blue Jackets in points, that is to say, by 2. Zach Werenski currently leading the team with 48 points. So that's what's happening there. Like I said earlier on, the Flyers' special teams aren't great, so it might be in the Blue Jackets' favor actually to play some special teams tonight. They're 27th on the power play, 20th on the penalty kill versus the Blue Jackets 9th on the power play and 27th on the penalty kill. Flyers are better than the Blue Jackets in faceoffs, worse in goals for per game. They're scoring 3.02 goals a game versus the Blue Jackets 3.4 goals per game. Blue Jackets have crept up to 5th in the league in goals for per game right now, by the way, which is fun and exciting. However, they're 31st in the league in goals against per game at 3.51 to the Flyers 3.4. So there's going to be some goals in this game. Both teams are on little win streaks at the minute. Blue Jackets are on a 4-game winning streak. The Flyers are on a 2-game winning streak. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10 games. Blue Jackets are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, which is great, honestly. The Blue Jackets are going to be without Sean Monahan still. I heard yesterday, I think it was, that he's got a wrist brace on at the minute. They're going to keep it on him for 2 weeks and then see where it goes from there. So he's going to be out for at least 2 weeks, which is not great, but he didn't break his wrist, which is great news. And frankly, Adam Fantilli has really stepped up in his place. He's got a nice little point streak going at the minute. I think he's on a 5-game point streak, 6 points in that time. He's up to 21 points in 43 games. He's been hit with the sophomore slump real bad, but is he finally turning it around now that he's got actual real life wingers? Quite possibly. That Marchenko, Voronkov, Fantilli line was a lot of fun against the Blues, and I'm hoping to see it again against the Flyers. So Adam Fantilli is definitely one of my guys to watch for the Blue Jackets. He might be my pick for goal scoring tonight. In terms of other players, I mentioned Dmitry Voronkov. He's got 4 goals in his last 5 games. Zach Werenski has 8 points in his last 5 games, including 6 assists. So he's continuing to do Zach Werenski things. Like I said, 48 points in 43 games as a defenseman is bonkers, quite honestly. And I'm having a lot of fun watching him play at the minute. In terms of other players for the Blue Jackets, I feel like Mathieu Olivier is due a goal. He hasn't scored in a minute. His last goal was an empty net goal against the Blues on not the last game they played on Saturday, but the one that was literally a week before. It was the start of the win streak. So maybe Mathieu Olivier is my pick for tonight's goal. I haven't been keeping track about when I've been winning and losing these bets, but let's have some fun. Let's say that Mathieu Olivier is going to get a goal tonight. We're going to manifest this. And then let's say that the final score is going to be, let's say 3-1 for the Blue Jackets. And this is me. I'm basing this on Elvis playing. If Tarasov is playing, then my prediction might be different. But I'm going to go ahead and base this on the assumption that Elvis starts tonight and Tarasov starts on Thursday against the Sharks. So let's say a 3-1 win for the Blue Jackets. I'm including an empty netter in that. And as we all know, empty netters don't count. So really, this is like a 2-1 win. But a 3-1 win for the Blue Jackets, a Mathieu Olivier goal, 5-game win streak. Let's get it done. That's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, we'll break down tonight's game with the good, bad, and the ugly. Hopefully more of the first than the last two. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find me over on Blue Sky under the same name without the underscore. You can find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. Email me if you want to at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com if you have comments, questions, criticisms, anything like that. And thank you once again for listening, for making us your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Tomorrow we'll break down tonight's game. Until then, though, make sure you stay locked on.